Welcome back, Patriots. This is yours truly, the creator and the host of the Outspoken Patriot, Michael Kinnett. Thanks for tuning in to the 7th episode of VOP. Today is President's Day, which gives us the perfect time to talk about some key leaders throughout this podcast. Before we get into that, though, I want to remind all of you that the Outspoken Patriot is here for the average, everyday American. Yes, all of you listening right now. With that being said, if you like the content here on this channel, please subscribe and leave comments on our episodes. If we see one of your comments that talks about a certain issue you are facing, or maybe just interested in, then who knows? Maybe your thoughts will turn into our next topic for one of our episodes. Exciting stuff, Patriots. Okay, let's start talking about American freedom and American leaders. When you think of a president, who comes to mind? If it's the presidents that you hate with a burning passion, well, you may need to try some prayer time or meditation because we have had way too many great leaders for you to sum up the presidency with one that you can't stand. Think of a strong leader. I think of Ronald Reagan. I know, all of you are shocked. He didn't put up with anything, but yet he spoke so eloquently. Other countries knew not to mess with him, but he also represented the good and nice values that Americans share. Now, if you know your history, Reagan took office after crushing Jimmy Carter during the 1980 presidential election. During Carter's last few years/months, he was telling Americans that the good times in America were over, that we had to limit the amount of energy we used and had to practically stop living the American dream, where we can buy what we want and live the life of a blessed American. Now, I have to agree with some of you out there. This sounds a lot like the president we have in office now. And I'll say this, after a President Carter comes a President Reagan. Now, Reagan hated this. He was born into a lower-class family in Illinois. His life was the example of the American dream, going from radio host to the big screen and then to governor of California. This was just the fight for a man like Reagan. He said, and I quote, "Don't let anyone tell you that America's best days are behind her, that the American dream had been vanquished. We've seen it triumph too often in our lives to stop believing in it now." This is exactly how I feel. I'm tired of people saying COVID will never go away and that we have to accept a new normal. Well, I'll tell you what. There's no new normal in America. Anything that differs from our America is no longer considered the United States. So, my point is that during all the issues we face in our lives today, we have to take a step back and realize that politicians do not dictate how we live our lives. President Carter couldn't, and again, let me tell you, President Biden is going to meet his Ronald Reagan here coming up in 2024. And I know we have what seems to be a long way to go, but remember the quote I read earlier. We as a nation have gone through too much to change our way of life and our idea of the American dream. So why focus on some of our leaders for this episode? Well, the main reason is to show that a country this great deserves leaders that represent all of us. You, the people, get to decide that. It seems anymore that people have forgotten that you vote for those who support your values and topics you care about the most. You don't simply vote based on party affiliation. Maybe some of you have seen how voting that way gives us a leader who destroys 4 years of true progress. Others may see how voting that way gives us a leader who isn't so wise in choosing words like Reagan. That's why voting is so important, because you are allowing the person you choose to essentially protect your freedom. Okay, current events time here on the Outspoken Patriots. So we're going to take a step back from focusing on our leaders, but I think you can see how this connects. So, who has been looking at the updates from our friends up north? Yeah, Canada fell pretty quick, didn't they? This just goes to show that we really are the last stand for freedom here in the world. People do not realize that almost all dictators are elected and supported by the people at first. And yes, I'd say that their prime minister is definitely showing signs of a dictator. If you don't know anything about it, here's a quick summary of what's going on. Canadians are protesting all of the mandates that their Prime Minister has set on the nation. Truckers began this movement by blocking roads and affecting some trade. Now, you can agree that the protesters are doing something good, or I guess you can say that maybe it's not the right decision. But if the nation as a whole is against something, and you send officers and soldiers to stop the protest, then do you think that you are doing what's best for the citizens or yourself? My prayers go out for those brave men and women in Canada who are fighting for their freedoms in a peaceful manner, especially since Canada is now freezing all bank accounts of those who support this fight for freedom. It's scary to think that we were almost this close to this point when our government was trying to place all of the mandates on us. Thankfully, our founding documents are undefeated against government control. Thank you, Founding Fathers. So again, it's President's Day, and we've already talked about Reagan, but let's discuss some other great leaders. I wanted to do this episode because I think we have the chance to elect a great president in 2024, someone who believes in America. So here's a quote for all of you patriots. See if you can tell which leader said it, and I'll be impressed if you can. America was not built on fear. America was built on courage, on imagination, an unbeatable determination to do the job at hand. This is President Harry Truman, a great leader and a great Democrat who decided to use the atomic bomb in order to save millions of American troops. Some may disagree with his choice, but research has shown, and this is a crazy fact, that if American troops would have invaded Japan during World War II, the casualties could have ranged from 1.7 million to 4 million U.S. troops. Now, that's a leader, and he had to answer to this decision, but he was willing to make it in order to preserve this great nation. Another little side fact that you will all find interesting is something that I actually just heard about, around a month ago. So get this. George Washington didn't believe that we could defeat the British. Remember, they were the most powerful empire in the world, but he believed so strongly in the idea of America that he accepted the role of being the general of the Continental Army. He also knew that his own name would be ruined or stained if Britain would have won. Now, that's some serious love for a nation, and some pretty strong leadership as well. We could also look at presidents like JFK, who stood up to the Soviet Union during the Cuban Missile Crisis, or President Eisenhower, who guided America through one of her most prosperous times in history. If you haven't realized the trend here, all of these presidents put America first. They didn't let other countries threaten this great nation. They didn't listen to their opponents when they said America's best days were behind her. These men put our founding documents first, which is crucial when a country is ran by its people rather than by one man or group. There is no freedom like American freedom. The Outspoken Patriot stands with all of you hard-working Americans that feel the effects from the politicians who push ideas that benefit them rather than you. Realize that we, the people, control this land, not the politicians. You keep this country good, and more importantly, you elect the men and women who represent America. Remember, those in power may be saying that our best days are behind us, but who ever listened to them in the first place? Our best days lie ahead of us, and that's something that I'm willing to fight for. Happy President's Day to the leaders who loved America and our strong values. Thanks for listening, Patriots. United we stand. Let's continue to fight for our American freedoms.